Hello everyone, it's Alex, aka Flipzcat, and welcome back to another Hypixel Skyblock video. So I am here on my island, and in today's video I'm going to tell you a list of every single enchantment available in Hypixel Skyblock and the max level that you can get for them. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you get notified when I upload these Hypixel Skyblock videos. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's start off with swords. You can get Cleave, which goes up to level 5, and this does 12% of your damage dealt to other monsters within 4.2 blocks of the target. So this is basically Sweeping Edge. And by the way, I do want to mention that all these enchantments are actually coming from a guide on the Hypixel forums. So that is linked down in the description if you want to look at that. Okay, next up is Looting. This goes up to level 3, and it increases the chance of monsters dropping an item. Then there is Scavenger. This goes up to level 3, and it means that monsters drop coins when you kill them. The higher the level the enchantment, the more coins they drop. Next up is Smite. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the damage you do to undead mobs. After that is Experience. This can be applied to any item, and this goes up to level 3, and it increases the amount of XP you get from killing a mob, or mining an ore, or whatever. Next up is Execute. This goes up to level 5, and what this does is the more damage that has been dealt to a monster, the more damage you will do. Next up is Lifesteal. This goes up to level 3, and it heals you for a certain percentage of the damage you do to mobs. The higher the level, the more you get healed. Impaling, this goes up to level 3. This is like the sea creature equivalent of Smite, and it increases the damage you do to squids and guardians. Then there is Knockback. This goes up to level 2, and it just allows you to hit the mobs back. Next up is Cubism. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the damage you do to slimes, creepers, and magma cubes. Okay, next up is Luck. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the chances of a mob dropping their armor. So this is especially useful when you're trying to get lapis armor. Next up is Critical. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the critical damage you do when you get a critical hit. Okay, next up is Lethality. This goes up to level 5, and this reduces the armor of your target by a certain amount for 8 seconds, and the more you hit them, the more it gets reduced, up to 5 times. Next up is Sharpness. Pretty self-explanatory. It does more damage, and it goes up to level 5. Next up is First Strike. This goes up to level 4, and it increases the damage you do on your first hit to mobs. Next up is Bane of Arthropods. This goes up to level 5, and it increases damage dealt to cave spiders, silverfish, and spiders. Next up is Venomous. This goes up to level 5 as well, and it reduces your target's speed, and it does damage to them as well for 4 seconds. Next up is Thunderlord. This strikes a monster with lightning if you get 3 consecutive hits on them, and the higher the level, the more damage it does, and this goes up to level 5. Next up is Ender Slayer. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the damage you do to Endermen and Ender Dragons. Next up is Giant Killer. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the damage you do to mobs by the amount of health they have above you. Next up is Vampirism. This is similar to Lifesteal, but this goes up to level 5, and it heals for a certain percentage of your missing health whenever you kill an enemy. Next up is Fire Aspect. This goes up to level 2, and it ignites your enemies on fire for 3 seconds. The final enchantment, I don't have a picture of it here, but is Telekinesis, and this basically means that whenever you kill a mob, the items will go directly into your inventory. This has only 1 level, and it can be applied to a weapon or a tool. Okay, next up is Tools. So the first one is Experience. This goes up to level 3, and it gives you extra XP when you mine stuff, which is a really useful enchantment. Next up is Efficiency. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the speed at which you mine. Then there's Harvesting. This goes up to level 5, and this can only be applied to hoes, and it gives you the chance for double crop drops. Next up is Smelting Touch. This only goes up to level 1, and it means that when you mine stuff, it automatically gets smelted as if it was in a furnace. So for instance, if you mine a piece of gold, you get gold, and if you mine cobblestone, you get stone. Next up is Rainbow. This can be applied to shears, and it only has 1 level, and it causes sheep to drop random colored wool when you shear them. Next up is Soak Touch. This means that when you mine something, it drops the block form of it. So for instance, when you mine stone, it drops stone, and when you mine emerald ore, it drops emerald ore. Then there is Fortune. It increases the chance of getting double drops when mining an ore. And finally, there is Telekinesis, which once again means that when you mine something, it directly goes into your inventory. Next up is Fishing Enchantments. First off, we have Lure. This goes up to level 5, and it decreases the time it takes to catch something. Next up is Magnet. This goes up to level 5, and it gives you extra XP when fishing. Next up is Spiked Hook. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the damage you do to monsters with your fishing rod. Next up is Blessing. This goes up to level 5, and it increases your chance of getting double drops when fishing. Next up is Frail. This reduces the health of sea creatures when they are caught. Next up is Caster. This goes up to level 5, and it increases your chance of not consuming bait upon cast. Next up is Angler. This goes up to level 5, and it increases your chance to catch sea creatures. Next up is Luck of the Sea. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the chance of catching treasure when fishing. Next up is Looting. This goes up to level 3, and it increases the chance of a monster dropping an item when you kill it. Finally, once again, there's Telekinesis, which means the items go directly into your inventory. Okay, next up is Bows. And the first enchantment we have is Power. This goes up to level 5, and it increases the bow damage. Then we have Infinite Quiver. This goes up to level 5, and it gives you your arrow back a certain percentage of the time after you shoot it. Then there's Punch. This goes up to level 2 and knocks back an enemy when you shoot it. Then there's Flame. This has only 1 level, and it lights your enemies on fire. Okay, then there's Aiming. This goes up to level 5, and it means that the arrows automatically target an enemy when they're within a certain radius. Then there's Cubism. This increases the damage dealt to slimes, creepers, and magma cubes. Then there's Piercing. This has only 1 level, and it means that the arrows will actually travel through an enemy and deal 25% of the damage to the next one they hit. Then there's Impaling, which goes up to level 3 and increases the damage dealt to guardians and squids. Finally, there is Smite. This goes up to level 3, and it means that arrows do more damage the farther they travel. And once again, there's Telekinesis, which means you automatically get the drops in your inventory. And the final list of enchantments I have for you is enchantments for armor. Okay, first up, there's Growth. This goes up to level 5, and it actually goes up to level 6 if you buy it from the Dark Auction, along with a couple other enchantments. You can check out my guide on the Dark Auction to see all those enchantments. But anyway, the higher the level of Growth, the more health you get. This can go on every armor piece, and level 5, it gives you plus 75 health. Next up is Protection. This goes up to level 5, and it grants extra defense. Next up is Blast Protection. This goes up to level 5, and it grants extra defense against explosions. Next up is Fire Protection. This goes up to level 5 and grants extra defense against fire and lava. Next up is Thorns. This goes up to level 3, and it gives you a 50% chance to rebound a percentage of the damage that you were hit for back on the monster that hit you. Okay, next up is Projectile Protection. This decreases the damage you take from arrows and other projectiles. Next up for the helmet is Aqua Infinity. This only has 1 level, and it increases your underwater mining speed. Next up is Respiration. This goes up to level 3, and it extends the time you can stay underwater. Next up, and only for the creeps, this is Depth Strider 3, and it allows you to move faster in water. Next up is Feather Falling. This goes up to level 5, and it increases how far you can fall before taking damage, and reduces the damage you take. Next up is Frostwalker. This goes up to level 2, and it means that when you walk on water, it will replace the water with ice so that you can walk on it. So yeah, that is going to wrap up this video of all the enchantments available in Hypixel Skyblock. I really hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It does help me out a ton. And yeah, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.